Hey listeners, it's Kara, your host. After 176 amazing episodes and hundreds of book recommendations, I wanted to make it a little bit easier for you to find your next great read. The Bookish Lights Roadmap is your guide to all 175 podcast episodes, sorted by genre so you can quickly find the stories that fit your reading mood. From picture books to adult novels and everything in between, it's the perfect way to explore past episodes and discover new favorites. You can find your copy of the Bookish Lights Roadmap at www.bookishlights.com/read/roadmap, or just click the link in the show notes. Hi, I'm Kara Infante, and this is Bookish Flights, a podcast where we tell our stories through our favorite books. Each episode features a bookish guest where we will talk about reading, life, and the seasons we're in, all through a thoughtfully paired book flight of recommendations for you. If you're looking for meaningful book recommendations and a space to slow down, you're in the right place. In today's episode, I am chatting with Jennifer van der Kleut, née McBride. Jennifer is an award-winning former journalist of both print and digital publications, including the DC affiliate of ABC News. A graduate of San Jose State University, she spent most of her life in the San Francisco Bay Area before moving to the Northern Virginia suburbs of DC, where she currently lives with her husband and two sons. For nearly a decade, she was the lead singer of the Bay Area-based band Sweet Duration and performed with artists like Jason Mraz, Big Country, Chantal Kraviazik, and Stabbing Westward. When she's not writing, she loves going to the beach with her family, going to concerts with her girlfriends, and getting lost in the pages of a book. We are here today to discuss her book, The Better Mother. Welcome to the show, Jennifer.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yes, I am so excited to have you. We met through Carmela Dutra, which I should have looked up her episode number. But she was one of my favorite guests. She was just a hoot to interview. No pun, chicken pun intended.
Chicken fun, yes. Yeah, I loved that episode. I was like, this sounds like a fun podcast.
Yes, that was wonderful. So I feel like we are so much more than our bios, though. So why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Yeah, let's see. I'm in my 40s, but I feel like I've lived a million years and a million lives. My two sons, Connor and Oliver, they're teenagers now. So I think that's what made me finally sit down and try writing a novel. It's something I always had in the back of my mind. And just like you, I've been a lifelong reader, never saw me without a book in my hands when I was a kid. And so it's been wonderful. And I'm still pinch myself every day that it's blossomed into this like actual second act career, because I just wanted to see if I could do it. And if I tried to write a novel, like what would it sound like? What would it look like? And as a former journalist, so I started out at small print newspapers in California. If you're familiar with the Bay Area, I wrote for the Los Gatos Weekly, the Saratoga News, things like that in the Bay Area. Then I moved up to digital news sites. And when I moved out here to the DC area, I worked for a time at ABC7 News, which was really exciting, getting to be on the TV side of it. I still did the digital news. Like basically I took the broadcasts and kind of boiled them down into a few paragraphs and wrote the website version of the story. But it was so cool getting to see all the politicians, all the celebrities that would come through the office, and that was great. And it was wonderful for a long time, but the journalism industry, especially nowadays when everything's online and everything's social media, I felt like almost every day I woke up and had been acquired by a new company, and my boss got laid off, or I was laid off, and everything changed overnight so many times that I finally decided it was time to step away.
Yeah, it almost became like unpredictable, it sounds like.
Oh, completely unpredictable. I mean, getting bought out once or twice a year and having the whole organization change overnight. I really respect journalists that love it enough to stick with it and keep going because it is tough.
Yeah, it seems like a roller coaster of emotions, right? Because it
Yeah.
still hurts when you get laid off, even though you know why, right? But it's just like that up and down is that's challenging to stick with.
Absolutely. And it was funny. I was talking on another podcast the other day and they made me realize something that how much that prepared me for the life of an author because with online reviews and comments on posts and things like that, it's like you never know when you're going to come across your own name or somebody sharing their opinion about you or your book. And that it was so much like that with journalism,
Yeah.
especially once I moved to online. Every time you post anything, there's instantly a million comments and people arguing back and forth. And whenever you do get laid off, it makes you question yourself, like, well, why did they pick me? Why didn't they lay off that guy?
Yeah.
And I guess I really got used to that whole world, and so I guess it kind of helped prepare me for being a querying author, being out on sub with my agent once I had an agent, sending it to editors and getting their feedback, and well, why didn't they pick my book? Why did they publish that one?
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So.
So it maybe toughened your exterior a little bit, it sounds like.
Yeah, and my husband always laughs because when I was a journalist, I used to get so upset sometimes about some of the comments. People, oh, she's an idiot. She doesn't know what she's talking about. Blah blah blah. Even or claiming that I'm was being biased or subjective. That was the one that always bothered me the most
Yeah.
because I'm like, literally, I just posted, he was here, he said this, and that was the end. And how subjective can that be? But people would accuse me of being biased just for the fact that I said he was there and he said that. And I'm like, but it's the news.
Yeah. Well,
So
I'm also thinking of just the news stories and just the way America is right now. It's just so divided. And so if one side is saying one thing, the other side is saying the other, and just it it is so ripe for argument all over the place. And I don't know if that's like the online access and people forget like your name is still on what you're posting. And I'm like, sometimes I read comments, I'm like, you do realize your name is right there, right? And you sound like the most horrible person ever. And the way you're
yeah.
talking to this other person, like it just is a minefield, it feels like.
And it wasn't as bad when I was in California because California is very blue as far as the eye can see.
Yeah.
But when I moved out to the DC area, it's very half and half out here. And
Yeah.
so
That's a good point.
everything is a battle out here. And yeah, that was a big factor in why I decided, I'd rather write about fictional people than real people.
Yeah. Did you find when you made the switch to writing your novel, did some of your skills translate though from journalism?
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, even as a journalist, I was a little long-winded. I was always like, if there's a fact and I know it, I'm going to put it in there. And they're like, okay, not everything is necessary. Um, but it definitely helped me learn to self-edit a lot. Um, and, to be descriptive and to get to the point of why does this thing matter?
Yeah.
And when you're writing a news article, you have to assume that people may not read even past the first paragraph. So get as much in that first
Yeah.
paragraph as possible and make them realize why they should want to know about this, why it's important, and that's what will get them to keep reading. And it's definitely more nuanced with fiction. You have to get them to care about the character, why it's important, what's happening to them. It may not seem important at first, but it may become more important later. So it helps you kind of hone in on what's important, I guess.
Yeah, I love stats. And I don't know if that's being trained as a physical therapist, like the science, the nerdy side of reading. And so usually once every couple of weeks, I'll look up a fun reading stat to share on the page. And recently I did one on attention span, and our attention span today is 7 seconds. before you're moving on to something else. And so you're exactly right. We don't have people's attention for very long. So you got to get to the point quick, and you've got to, figure out how you're going to hook them into your story, right? So they want to be invested and figure out what's going to happen to this character. And
Yeah, and that can be really hard. I mean, I struggle with it too because I love getting into character backstories and backgrounds and oh, she's an adult now, but when this happened to her as a child, that made her this way
yeah,
and sometimes
foreshadowing.
I end up having to cut so much of my writing, but I went to a talk by Lucy Foley, that's the thriller author.
Yeah.
She's fabulous. And she said something that really struck me, which is that, that's okay on your first draft. Write anything and everything that comes to your mind. If you have a tiny little story about a fight a kid got into when they were young on the playground and how it affects, the way they are in their job today as a grown up. And she's like, just write it. And
Yeah.
she's like, that helps you get to know the character. And then later you'll be able to go back and, refine everything and figure out, what's important, what to keep, what's not necessary. And sometimes it's hard to cut out the parts that, made you really attached to your character. But, in the end, it'll make a tighter book. And that's such a big part of it.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, let's not keep the listeners on their edges of their seats any longer, but let's tell them about The Better Mother if they haven't had a chance to pick it up yet.
Absolutely. So it's a thriller. It's about 34-year-old Savannah. She lives in San Francisco, and she just got out of a really long relationship when the book starts. They were together for many years. They had just reached the point where they had both decided they wanted to start a family when he changes his mind and leaves. She left her pretty devastated. And so when the book opens, it's been about a year since they broke up, and she's finally starting to feel like getting back out there again. And she has a casual relationship with a man she meets at a bar. They only see each other a few times and then they lose touch. But then a month or so later, she finds out she's pregnant, and she decides to do the right thing and get in touch with him and let him know. And when she does, she finds out he just got back together with his ex, Madison. So they decide that they're going to form a friendly co-parenting relationship. But then Madison starts getting much more involved than she expected and almost, trying to take over every aspect of the pregnancy, checking on her. Are you eating right? Are you exercising? I want to come to the doctor's appointments and make sure everything's okay. And everything kind of spirals out of control, and it turns into a very obsessive, dangerous relationship. And you start to realize that there's a lot more going on than she expected. And it's a thrilling wild ride. Well, at least I hope people find it a thrilling wild ride.
Yes, I was just thinking as you were talking, I'm like, she is doing this so well without giving spoilers. Because I think that would also be really hard as an author, right? Is to kind of build this up where we want to pick it up without telling us too much.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what do you hope for readers? What do you hope they'll take away when they pick up the book?
It's been really cool seeing a lot of the early reviews. Just things that people point out. Some people say like, well, it's kind of predictable. But I mean, I think there are some things that will take you by surprise. I think, there are characters and the backstories, and like I said, that's always my favorite part is really getting
Yeah.
to know who these characters are, why they're doing the things they're doing, and what made them who they are, and this is why they react to something a certain way. Especially with villains, I love thinking like, they seem so crazy to us, but I love getting into what makes them think they can do this, what makes them
Yeah.
think they're justified or that they'll get away with it.
Yeah.
So
Because
they're
the average person, we're not like that, right? Like what made them
yeah,
twist?
yeah, that
Yeah.
what drives them, and um yeah, I find that fascinating. So I really loved getting into that with Madison, what makes her do the things she does and think that it's okay. It makes me think of me and my husband sometimes when we watch a movie, like a thriller movie or a horror movie, when you're like yelling at the screen, like, no, don't go into that room. Like, why are you doing that? That's a stupid idea.
Yeah.
I get a lot of comments from readers that say they were like shouting at their book or into their headphones listening to the audiobook. And I think that's so fun. I would definitely, I want reactions like that because it kind of
Yeah.
puts you in their place and gets you invested and excited. And yeah, there are some things that Savannah, our main character, does or doesn't do that really confuse people. But I say, you know, it was important to me to make her human. She's fallible, she's flawed, and she, especially having gotten out of this relationship where she was really devastated and really down on herself, it makes her kind of take more than she should as far as the mean things that other people do to her. But eventually she learns to stand up for herself, and it makes for a really, really gripping battle, I think. So
Yeah.
I hope people take that away from it that, okay, yeah, she's not reacting the way I would react, but you know, with this backstory, I think I can understand where she's coming from and just root for her that she finally, you know, finds her voice and her confidence and stands up for herself.
Does the guy that's in the middle, I'm sorry, I can't remember his name if you said it, but does he realize what Madison is doing? Like, does he see it as
That's one of the questions that
strange?
readers I have said they're asking themselves a lot through the book. It's hopefully hard to tell whether, you know, he is aware, whether he believes her. That's one of the scary things about gaslighting is that they make you feel like you're crazy
Yeah.
when you're saying like she's doing this to me, this happened, that happened, and they're like, what are you talking about? She
Yeah.
would never do that. You know, I think you're imagining things, and it makes for a gripping psychological kind of
Yeah.
suspense.
How fun. What did you learn about yourself through writing the book?
Um, just that I could do it, you know, and all those years and years and years of reading, just how much it really sticks with you and it makes you realize I love reading this type of story and I love when they use this tool and that tool and how it made me realize how much it had all stayed with me and growed with me and you know it all just kind of flowed and I was
Yeah.
like, wow, why didn't I try this sooner? But at the same time, you know, like I said, as a mom with kids and needing to hold a job and all that kind of thing, I don't think it would have worked if I had tried it any earlier in my life. I think I would have probably gotten very frustrated and stressed out and given up. And now is just absolutely the right time in my life. My kids are teenagers. You know, they're very independent. They don't need me as much. They don't want me as much.
Yeah, exactly.
And and I have just the time and the energy to devote to it. And I think that's a big part of why everything happened so quickly. I read so many stories about, you know, authors that it took years and years of querying to get an agent, years and years of revising and subbing, and maybe,
Yeah.
you know, writing 5, 6, 7 books before one really hit. And I can definitely sympathize with that. And I think that probably would have been me if I had started any earlier, but just I don't know, all the stars aligned, I guess, and the idea came at just the right time, and so it's still staggering how quickly everything happened, but I feel so lucky.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking as you're talking, right, that as moms, can recognize a lot of times that we might not have time for this, but it's a dream you have. And then you just sit there and in your mind, right, and folding the third basket of laundry or whatever, you're just dreaming. And so I think you marinate on these ideas for a long time. And I don't,
Yeah,
other people probably
absolutely.
do this too, but like I know the mom life where we're being pulled in so many different directions, but we're on the back burner right now. And so, I think I'm guessing maybe for you too, right? Like this was there the whole time and you're just, gently
Yeah,
marinating this idea in your mind as you're being mom, which is one of the most important jobs we can ever have. So I get that too, right? Like I'm not ready to sacrifice this time with my kids because I know, they're like you said, they're not going to need me as much as they get older or want me to be around, but I'm going to enjoy it while I can.
absolutely. And I'm glad that I did that too.
Yeah.
When I first left journalism, I stayed home for many years, being the full-time mom, and I think my family is all the better for it. I know not everyone can afford to do that.
Yeah.
I did freelance projects here and there during the day while they were in school, to make some extra income, but I was always right there when they walked in the door home from school, they needed a ride, or the classroom needed a volunteer or something like that. I felt really fortunate to be able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's such a gift for sure. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about who you are as a reader. What genres do you enjoy reading?
I've always been a huge thriller mystery reader. So I think it's very natural that, when I first started writing, like that was the idea
Yeah.
that really struck me that I wanted to explore. Um, I have so many favorites. I always say Carol Goodman is one of my absolute favorites. She's been around for many decades, but she still comes out with a new thriller almost every year, and it's
Yeah.
always so good and so amazing. And I really love how she pulls elements of other genres into her writing. She gets a lot into folklore and kind of, fae and demons and spirits and things. Or she'll get into like the ancient history of a certain location, or, and just she'll infuse so much fact into her writing. You can tell she does a lot of research that, you feel like you're learning something at the same time as you're so excited about this storyline. And I love that. So she has always been one of my
Yeah.
favorites. And then for some more current ones, I love Kara Ruda. I love Robin Harding,
Oh,
Ashley Winstead, Carter Wilson, um, just so many.
yeah.
And it's amazing.
I had a guest recently, Susan May Warren, and it just stuck with me since she has said this because she has written over 100 novels.
Oh
And
my
she was like,
goodness.
I'm a really great dinner guest because she's like, I could talk to you about dogs or Bitcoin or cybersecurity or just all the random rabbit holes I have gone down to research for my book. She's like, I might only have very surface level knowledge, but I have a lot of random knowledge from researching for my books. And it's just stuck with
Absolutely.
me. Yeah. And so I'm thinking, like, as you were talking about Carol Goodman, I'm like, I'm sure she's a great dinner guest.
Oh yeah, I believe she's also a professor up in the Hudson Valley, and I think she teaches creative writing and also folklore and
Yeah.
things like that. And so it's so fascinating. I think she's probably one of the original dark academia
Fun.
writers. So many of her earlier books are set around a small liberal arts college where someone teaches folklore, and
Yeah.
it's great. She's
It goes
wonderful. I think
awry.
everyone should read her.
Yeah.
And as far as romance, like this year, I've been loving the Dream Harbor books. They're just
Yes.
such feel good romances, like the Hallmark movies.
Yeah.
And Ellen Hildebrand has always been one of my favorites. She's contemporary. A lot of her novels have romance in them, but they're also just about like family and personal dynamics and careers, and she even has a few that have thriller storylines.
Yeah.
And so those are a lot of my favorites.
Yeah. How in your busyness do you find time to read?
I'm a very slow reader, so if I 2 to 3 books a month is average for me. I may only get in a few chapters a day, but definitely try to read every single day.
Yeah. And you
Usually
always
right
have one
before
going.
bed.
Yeah.
Yeah. While I eat lunch, or I might get a chapter or two in right before bed before I zonk out. But
Yeah. Well, you have brought 3 books with you in the form of a book flight. Can you tell us how you chose these books?
yeah. So these are 3 thrillers that I've read in the past year that I just found really fascinating because they have such a unique premise. I feel, everyday life, that's where you get your inspiration. And so it's so common to have a story about, going back to my childhood town or a missing girl or, you know, there those kind of tropes are very overused sometimes, but
Yeah.
these authors just really honed in on an idea that was very different and it made their books so unique. And I think that's why they've done so well. So, I chose The Last Celebrity by
Okay.
Madeline Henry, and she
Yeah.
was a completely new to me author. I just stumbled across her. I don't think her book is even out yet. I think it may be another month or two before this
Okay.
book comes out.
We'll
So I
check. By the
stumbled,
time where our episode comes out, it might be out. But if
it
not, I'll
might be.
I'll include it in parentheses when you can get it.
Yeah, I just came across it on NetGalley. I had started working on my next book, and it was going to deal with a lot of Hollywood celebrity culture. So I was
Fun.
looking for books in that vein for some inspiration, and to maybe find some comps for my book. And I came across hers, and it's so fascinating. It reminds me a lot of the TV show Mr. Robot in that it's this organization of people who decide that they're tired of celebrity culture and the rich being the most influential in society and making all the decisions. And people only care about you if you're rich or you're famous, things like that. So they decide they're going to rid the world of celebrity culture, and they make a list of, I can't remember if it's 50 names or 100 names, but they said, these people, it's like a hit list. And
Okay.
so this organization, who they wear these really scary looking masks. They go around and they start kidnapping celebrities and
Whoa.
holding them for ransom. And so it reminds me a lot of Mr. Robot, of the guys who went around in those masks, and they were more into hacking and going after financial leaders. But these ones are literally just because if you're famous, if you're well known, if you're rich, like you're one of our targets. And one of the people who finds herself on the list is an author who's actually, like, she doesn't even think of herself as a celebrity, but
Mm.
one of her book series was made into a TV show that's doing pretty well. So they consider that influential enough, and she makes it on the list. And she has some famous friends. So one by one, her friends get kidnapped, and it's just absolutely terrifying. And so I love how it's a commentary on society, but also
Yeah.
just a really gripping thriller. And somehow she manages to be one of the only celebrities not to get kidnapped. And so she takes it upon herself to try to save the rest of them.
Wow.
And
That sounds
she,
awesome.
it was so fascinating.
Okay. I'm gonna have to pick that up. So that was The Last Celebrity by Madeline Henry. What's the
Yes.
next book you brought?
Tell Me What You Did by Carter Wilson. I just read that a few months ago. So it was my first book by him. And I just thought it was a really unique premise. There are a lot of, true crime books, podcast books, things like that. But this one had a really unique spin that caught my attention. So it's about a podcaster who has a true crime show, but her show is called Tell Me What You Did. And it's really interesting in that she invites criminals onto her show to confess their crimes.
Okay.
And she says, I promise you, I mean, like, you don't have to give your name, but if people figure out who you are, people figure out where you are, she's like, you're doing this at your own risk. But she finds that enough criminals want to come on their show and say what they did and why they did it. And just that draw to be understood, maybe.
Yeah.
So one day someone comes onto her podcast and says, I'm the one that killed your mother when you were a child. Um, and we'll just say that she knows he's lying. And the reason she knows he's lying is because she hunted down the person who killed her mother and killed him. So she says,
Oh,
can't
okay.
be you because I killed you. But then, it starts this whole investigation into what really happened to her mom. She's like, did I kill the wrong person? Or is this a copycat? Or is this
Yeah.
person lying? And it's so fascinating. And Carter Wilson is just a genius. When you have the physical book, you'll come across the end of a chapter and all of a sudden there'll be a QR code and you'll scan it with your phone. And there's an actor acting out a scene from the book,
How cool.
the podcaster, or it'll be pictures of some evidence that the police found. It's just it's almost very Blair Witch Project, when that
Yeah.
movie first came out, how everyone was like, is this true? Is this real? Did this really happen? Or is this all just like really creative writing? So it was absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. And what a fun way to read. I don't think I've ever read a book where it's interactive
No,
like that. So that's really
no, I
cool.
never did. And I didn't, and you wouldn't know unless you actually picked up the book and started reading. Like I haven't heard it mentioned anywhere. Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned it.
Yeah.
But
Well, you're not spoiling
it's
anything. It is fun though.
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. So that was Tell Me What You Did by Carter Wilson. And what's the last book you brought today?
The Only One Left by Riley Sager. It was also my first book of his. So many people recommended him as a great thriller writer. And I really love the whole classic, almost Agatha Christie like setting. This huge mansion on a cliff that, at any moment could just, if the rock erodes underneath it, it could all tumble into the ocean. And this girl is hired to be a nurse for a woman who's disabled, kind of incapacitated, who lives in this big, amazing mansion. And it turns out that the woman is the one who's accused of killing her whole family when she was younger. Her whole family grew up in this mansion. They all lived together there. And one night there's a gruesome murder and she's the only one left. She's the only one not dead at the end of it. And so everyone assumes that means that she killed the rest of her family. So it's kind of told in dual timelines where we go back to the events leading up to the gruesome murder versus today. And the nurse decides, she's going to try to get this woman to open up and tell her what really happened. And but she's not able to talk, so the only way she can do this is she pulls out this old vintage typewriter and just starts typing a little bit every day, one finger at a time. And
Yeah.
so you get the story in bits and pieces of what really happened back then, and it's just gripping and gothic and just so interesting. And I loved Riley Sager's descriptive writing, and I definitely want to read more by him now because that book was fantastic.
Yeah, that sounds so fun. I definitely even can picture the cover. It's red with that mansion up on the
Yeah,
crumbling rock. I know exactly what you're talking
yeah.
about, but I have not read this one. So that was The Only One Left by Riley Sager. So thank you so much for bringing those because I haven't read any. So now I'm like, ooh, three new books for my
Oh,
list.
wonderful. Yeah, they're all just very unique and really caught my attention.
Yeah. Well, how I love to end our show is with a speed round of questions you can answer really quick. Are you a rereader?
I am. I think it's a great way to get out of a reading slump sometimes by
Oh,
reminding yourself how good books can be, and that there are so many books out there that you loved that made you a voracious reader. So every once in a while you just got to go back and reread a favorite and it just makes you fall in love with reading all over again.
I like that. What is one book you've read that has changed your life?
I would say The Storyteller by Jodi Picoult.
Yeah.
That one was just amazing. It really gave you a close-up view of just how terrible World War II was, in the Holocaust. And um, in a book that can make you almost sympathize with the villain, I think is a masterpiece, in my opinion. And so you really get both points of view in that book. And I was like, wow, someone who can make me almost feel bad for such a horrible, horrible person. That's a talent right there.
Yes. Yeah. I remember reading this too. And just like that whole, like you said, that mental game of like, wow, okay. And that person was horrible.
Mhm.
Yeah. Amazing what
Yeah.
she can do with her books.
Oh gosh. And there was another one like that by Wally Lamb, had water in the title. I
Mm.
can't remember. But
I
that
think we've
one,
talked about it on the show. as well. Actually, I think Tracy Lang brought that book that you're talking about. I can't remember the title.
That one has a truly, truly horrible person in that book. But learning everything that happened to them as a child that kind of turned them into the person you are actually makes you feel bad for them, because you're like, if they hadn't had that done to them when they were a child, maybe they wouldn't have grown into a person that does this to other people. And I was like, wow, I've never sympathized with such a horrible person before. And
Yeah.
that's a talent right there.
Yeah. Well, next, where is your favorite place to read?
Favorite place to read is in warmer weather on the deck behind my house, next to the fire pit.
That sounds so
It's
fun.
just so cozy and comfortable, and just listening to that crackling fire while you read. I don't get to do it that often because of weather, but
Yeah.
otherwise I'd have to say in bed is
Yeah.
my favorite place.
Finish the day with a book always. Lastly, what are you reading next?
What am I reading next? Well, I'm very excited to be participating in the Creepy Retreat in Scottsdale, Arizona, with the Creepy Book Club, and so I'm trying to read a little bit of all of the authors that are going to be at that event. So I'm reading The Locked Ward by Sarah Pekkanen, because she's
Okay.
going to be there, and then Kelly Mullen is going to be there as well. So I'm really excited to pick up her debut, This Is Not a Game. So
Okay.
those are what I'm reading right now.
Well, that sounds so fun. What I've never been on a retreat, a book retreat, but it sounds like
Neither have
something I
I.
needed in my life.
I'm so excited. It's at this resort, and just palm trees and swimming pools and tons of amazing authors and readers to talk to. It sounds like
Yeah.
a dream, so I can't wait.
Yeah. And will you escape winter a little bit, or is it not for a bit?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's in Scottsdale, Arizona, so this
Yeah.
is supposed to be the perfect time to
That's why I
go
was
there.
like, oh, it's hopefully you'll be escaping the cold to go warm yourself up a little bit.
Yes.
So, well, thank you so much for coming on the show with me today. I know your time is precious and I appreciate all you've given me.
You so much for having me. This was so much fun to talk with you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for listening to this episode today with Jennifer Vanderkleut to discuss her novel, The Better Mother. Her book flight included thrillers with a unique premise. We'd love to hear what other books you'd pair with this book flight at bookishflights.com. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Your review not only helps the show, but it also helps the podcast to reach others. Make sure you are subscribed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to make sure you will not miss an episode. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As Emma Thompson said, I think books are like people in the sense that they'll turn up in your life when you most need them. Cheers to you, dear readers. Until next time.